when my daughter, when she was born and I went through that near-death experience, I didn't get instructions. I didn't get a list of things to be prepared for. I literally went back into the unhealthy relationship, couldn't leave the house, and sat on a freaking crate in the shower with the water pouring on me, crying because my daughter has dwarfism, pituitary dwarfism, which is in our family, and she had kidney development problems. So every night I was driving all night long to try to get her to sleep. She was in so much pain. And my ex-husband wasn't the kindest about it. He was definitely working out his own energy. So for me, I was alone. I couldn't have been more alone. And I could feel everybody and I could see everything. And it wasn't as many layers as it was in 2017. But at that time, I was 20 years old. And I was just stepping into these other layers because I got punched with it. It was like, woof, now I'm in this awareness that I wasn't in before. And my divorce, happened. It was a very sad situation. I was now a single mom with a 1-month-old baby and a 19-month-old little girl. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I could feel and hear everything. And it was at that point where I hadn't learned the difference between other people's feelings and mine. So it was like everything was in me. It was like this, what the heck am I going to do? It was horrific. So as my life, there's so much more, and that's why I'm writing a book. But as my life progressed, I ended up getting hit by a drunk driver. And I was partially paralyzed on the right side of my body. It took 10 years to learn how to walk. And I used a wheelchair just a year ago. There was down days. Not so much anymore. I'm officially no longer disabled. But it was a very long journey. I had 8 doctors tell me that I would never walk again, neurosurgeons, that I would never have more babies, that I would never, 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 never. And so to answer your question in this long, drawn out way, which has so many layers to it, is I had to make a decision. Was I going to learn how to internally validate my own inner knowing and my inner understanding, or was I going to listen to what everybody was telling me? Because sometimes, even with all the years of education, that judgment is blanketed on all people. Well, with her kind of injuries, there's no way she's walking again. But it isn't looking at the person. And every person is unique. When people come into my shop for herbs, there is general herbs, general teas that I sell, general creams, general stuff, but I also do specialty stuff. Why? Because if someone comes in and another person comes in with the same issue, and one person's staph-based and the other person's strep-based in their body, which is healthy, I'm not going to give them the same thing. They're going to have a different reaction. And that needs to be honored. And I was the difference. I chose to be in the difference. So, what ended up happening is I met this amazing surgeon, which I cannot say his name. I promised him that I would never say. He said he would lose his license. And I was 26 years old, single mama. And he shut the door and he said, you are completely healthy. You don't do drugs. You don't drink. You're a totally healthy person. You can walk again, but you're going to have to go figure it out. You don't need surgery. You need to heal. And then a friend of mine, Mauro, who is a music producer, he was in Holland producing some things, and he was sitting at a table next to these people that had just produced a movie. And it was all about the law of attraction. It was all about manifesting. It was all about connecting to the body. And I actually have the first burned printed copy ever because he printed it, came back from Holland and said, this isn't going to heal you, but it's going to help you change your mindset, and it's going to help you with your heart, with where your heart is at. And that was step 1. Once you start that process, once you're willing to look in the spaces you're afraid of with yourself, anything is possible because it no longer defines you. It's no longer your story, it's your history. And that is what I did. And it took me a year and a half. I told my leg, I told my brain to tell my leg, to tell my ankle, to tell my foot, to tell my toe to move. And once I moved my big toe, all I had to do was overcome the atrophy. And it was painful. But instead of looking at it as pain, I looked at it as all the signaling in my body telling me, hey, we're waking up. We're waking up and we're getting ready to function. We feel you. We hear you. This needs your attention. This needs your focus. And that changed everything for me. Everything. And then I wanted to go to school. I said, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go and do my grad program. I'm going to get my master's in public health and psychology because working with people is my path. It always has been. Even when I was little, 5 years old, giving readings. And I went back to the doctor because I had petit mal seizures, so I had to have it signed off. And he says, I will only sign this paper if you agree to become a doctor. And I was like, I can't say his name. I almost said his name. And I was like, I can't do that. I'd have to start all over. I'm doing arts. That's science. What are you talking about? And he said, how do you eat an elephant? And then I looked at him and said, have you met me? I would never eat an elephant. And he starts laughing and he says, silly girl, one bite at a time. One bite at a time. And I said, how about one hug at a time? And he said, okay. And he signed off. And I went to school to get my doctorate in osteopathy and my master's in public health and psychology. And I did not go for credentials. That had nothing to do with it. I went to heal myself. I went to learn about my body. I went to learn about my emotions. I went to learn about my mind and how it all coexisted and how it was impacting and how I was being impacted. What did I need to do to heal? That was the drive. That's that tenacity. I didn't want to be in the category of everybody else. I just simply wanted to be me. And I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know how it was going to get there. But I did know that this was a step in that direction. Through that, I transferred up to go to UCSF and Sac State. And when I did that, to do the multi-programs, I moved to Discovery Bay, which is where I met my parents. And they were my encouragers. You know, I ended up making product. I was making product for my kids. I made something for my son because I didn't want him to be on a machine for inhaling. I made different things for neighbors, and I was doing readings and helping the families around the area and going to school full time at 2 different schools and raising 5 kids because now at this point I adopted my daughter who's now 18 going to college. She leaves in a couple weeks. I adopted her at 6 and I had 2 more kids. So now I went from 2 daughters for 13 years to overnight I had 5 kids. And I loved it. It was amazing. I love it still. Well, what happened is my mom and my dad, my parents, they came to me and they said, Heather, you need to open a business. And I was like, hello, I'm going to school, like crazy 18 unit school. There's no way I can do a business. They're like, you have time to make medicine. I'm like, yeah, because I'm a single mom. I don't have a lot of money. I'm living off of scholarships and grants. This is what I have to do. And my mom said, no, people are knocking the door down for the medicine. People are knocking the door down for your sessions. You have to start this business. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. And at the same time, I was working part-time down the street at a wellness center so that I could make extra money and help this elder out who is ready to retire. So, long story short, I ended up taking over that 3,700 square foot wellness center and making payments to purchase it. It was in the red. It was making no money. 35 employees were about to lose their positions and jobs. And I didn't want to see that happen, and neither did the elder. So I started my business, started selling my product in the boutique, purchased the company. In 6 months, I ended up in the newspaper, completely turned it around, put the business in the black, and then sold it for a wash. I didn't even make money on it. I just saved it. And to this day, every single one of those employees still worked. So for me, when it was time to come into the store and be in Shasta and be in all those spaces, that wellness center, it guided me to Mount Shasta. And years later, here I am in this situation, because that was a long time ago. I was in this situation to start the store. I had some tools. I didn't have a lot of tools. I, didn't do accounting, but I had enough tools because I had spent all these years doing things to heal myself. And through all of this, guys, teachers would show up. Teachers to teach Ascension. Teachers to teach me the Red Road, a part of my Ancestry line. I'm Native American. I am Celtic. I am Egyptian. And I'm German. And each one of those, I have sacred grandparents. And people were showing up that weren't my blood, that said, Spirit called me to you. I need to teach you this. My pop, 86 years old when he passed, he was the chief medicine man of the Lakota people. And I was telling him a vision I'd had my whole life. He finished the story. He had been waiting 40 years for me. My parents, I had a vision of my mom's memory at 15, told her that I had this vision. I've been having it my whole life. It was her story. So it was showing me how connected we are. How when we're walking in our path, if we're not seeking, if we're not living in fear, if we're not living in guilt and shame, it doesn't mean it's not going to be there. It just means don't let it be your driver. Say, okay, I'm feeling fear. I'm having anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety is when your body is trying to let you know that you need to make a different choice. Where do I make that choice, Heather? What do I need to do? I don't know what to do. This is what I get a lot. Okay, everything you're saying makes sense, but how do I do it? Well, you go to the place you don't want to look inside. First, you start with the trauma. You start with the inner trauma. You tell your story on a piece of paper with a pen, not on the computer. Because when you're writing, it stimulates the right and left hemisphere of your brain. And what is that about? Why does that matter? It matters because every thought is an electrical. Every single thought. And once you have that thought, then your brainstem, your limbic system with a B, fires off a chemical. And that thought will trigger what type of chemical? And if we use something simple, I always use oxytocin. It's very easy. It's fight, it's flight, it's face, right? It's walk away. It has 4 parts, not just 2. Then you can look at it and decide, okay, I'm having this emotion. Ooh, what's my reaction? Okay, well, I'm in reaction. How do I observe it? Can I observe this? Does it really need an answer in this very second? Can I just take a moment? And if yes, you can take a moment. Being able to allow space to observe your feelings, man, that is a sacred gift. And it is needed. Because here's the powerful part, guys. A lot of times when these magical things happen to me, these beautiful blessings, was because I allowed myself the pause to let it occur. But every time in my past that I was trying to get the answer, I gotta make money, I gotta pay this bill, how am I gonna keep the electric on? If I'm letting that, and it happened. If you think for 1 second it was just like, oh, I'm just gonna be in the faith of it. No freaking way, man. I had moments when I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just gonna give up. I can't do it. It's too much. I'm just gonna go get a 9 to 5. Every single time I would do that, and one time I did end up getting a 9 to 5, but every single time I ended up going into that space of like, I'm not going to do this, somebody would text me and say, hey, Heather, I was working with you 2-3 years ago, and I didn't understand what you were talking about, and I felt really triggered and stopped working with you, and now looking back, every single thing you saw happened. And I just want to thank you, and I want to sign up for a session because I think I need a check-in. And I was like, okay, Spirit, are you telling me I need to keep going? Because this is a huge sign. So when I had that 9 to 5, I was still working that job. I was still showing up for Spirit every day. And sometimes I was exhausted. Sometimes I was working 16-hour days. piecing it together. Sometimes I could only spend 20, 30 minutes in the store because I had worked all day long for the person I was running her company. I was also trying to build my own company, and I was doing sessions with clients and coming in and doing different types of psychic surgery and teaching courses, teaching herbs. I was building everything tiny bit by tiny bit. Now, it sounds like a lot because it is. But here's the deal. You start with what you can handle. It isn't about putting it all on your plate at once, which I definitely have done. Some people think I'm still doing it. People that know me are like, oh no, she's cut it way down. You know? But everybody has a different plate. So you got to find out what plate resonates with you. And sometimes it's about shedding every single part of you and just being in the soul. Just letting it all fall away. Just taking that deep breath, letting it all go, letting the soul just be the soul. Not your name, not your kids, not your parents, not your partners, not your friends, not your business, not your history, nothing. Just be a soul. Just be the frequency. Let everything go for just a minute. Feel into that. What does it look like to you? If you take every part of your world and you let it go, then who are you? What are you? And how does it feel? And then as everything's laying so beautifully folded on the floor, for me it would just be dropped on the floor, but everybody's in their own zone. But they're showing me somebody's stuff is going to be beautifully folded because I'm seeing it. But everything's beautifully folded on the floor. And then you just look down at the things that resonate. Like, oh, my job isn't a job. Like for me, I don't have a job. I live my life and I show up. It's like people are like, oh my gosh, Heather, your daughter's getting married. You're working freaking from 8 a.m. to 10 o'clock at night the last couple days. Like, what's going on? I was like, no, I'm not really working. Is it work when you love what you do? We start out as living to work, right? And then we transform into working to live. Yes, I said that correctly. I'm the backwards girl. And then if you really work on yourself, if you really face those things, if you really look at the 5 elements of you, the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and ethereal, which is how you're impacted and how others are impacted by you. If you really look at that, then you can live. It's simply living. There is no work. It's just loving your life and loving yourself, even in the hard times. Look, guys, this week is a really powerful week for me, and we are in the Lion's Gate. Okay, the Emerald Dragon Lion Gate. This is different. This is about the heart. This is about facing the narcissist energy in ourselves and around us, which I don't even like labeling it, but it's the energy that doesn't want to face self. That's what it is. I mean, let's let go of labels here. We let it all on the floor, right? It's in the pile. When you're looking in that space and facing yourself, it doesn't mean you don't have life to face. My son's dad died. I am taking my sons to the burial this week. My 18-year-old, who is my youngest daughter, is going to be in college 12 hours away from me. My 26-year-old is getting married and moving to Germany. And my 24-year-old is moving out with my grandbaby, who has been with me pretty much most of her life, and she's 4. And she likes to snuggle with her grandma. So yes, life is still life. It still happens. It's not about getting into this space where life doesn't happen. It's about being able to move through it with grace and love in your heart and being able to have compassion and non-attachment to other people and things. Because the more we have no attachment, the closer we get to become. I know it's a conundrum. I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. The more I let those things fall away and I only pick up the ones that bring me joy, doesn't mean I'm not going to face things. It means I'm only going to fill myself up with the joy. And sometimes when we're facing the things that are joy, we have to let go of things that we've been clinging on to. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's places. Sometimes it's an ideology. But once we let that attachment go, everything else comes into its alignment. And if you guys don't know how to do that, there's shows like this. There's my show, GetTailored.love. There's PerfectBalance.love, where we teach courses about the 5 elements of you and how to use those fundamental soul tools. There's people like Jamie Price. There is so much out there. If it isn't me that you resonate with, go find somebody that you do and learn to love your life, even through the pain.
That's so true, Heather, sorry. I cannot imagine a better message to send out. And I mean, my God, it sounds like you've lived hundreds of life in what we see as one lifetime.
Yes, and my store is called Lives in a Lifetime, the Everything and Nothing store, because I've lived so many lives in this one life. But what an awesome journey, right? I mean, the life I've lived assists me in the example of continuing to learn so that other people can learn too. That's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no better mission, I think, that you could have. And it's almost like, I've heard this very often from people that have gone through challenges in their lives. And they've said, yes, but if I hadn't gone through that, if I hadn't had that sickness or that disease, that, struggle in my life, I wouldn't be able to resonate and connect and help the people that I do now, because I wouldn't know what it feels like. So it was almost put in my way so that in the end I would be able to be of service to people.
I said that a lot most of my life, and I realized recently that this is such an interesting comment that you're making. So I said this a lot in my life. And then I realized, I sat down with Spirit and I said, I don't need to experience it. All I need to do is be in my compassion and in my heart and in the non-attachment and apply the tools. And I'm pretty good, guys. I think I felt enough in that space. Like I'm ready to be able to witness where people are and to hold space for it with non-judgment and really be in that compassion. And I understand I needed to clear karma. I understand I needed to learn these lessons. And what I realized looking back, especially as I was writing the book, is that Spirit was giving me whispers. I was getting small moments where I could have made a shift, made a change in my life. These small moments. And I was resisting it. There was a moment when I knew I should have left that relationship, but I didn't. So I ended up getting drugged down the street and beat. There was moments when I felt it in my body, in my core, but I was so afraid of the unknown that I stayed. And it was the staying that caused the boom. And it was the boom that created the journey of healing. And what I recognized was those lessons, those understandings, those compassions can completely be embodied without having to feel all that pain, without having to have that horrible experience. Because sometimes I'll have a client that comes in one of my trauma sections and they'll stub a toe, right? Theoretically, their trauma is a toe stub, right? Equivalent. And then someone else will come in and their leg is missing, right? Not physically, but this is what they're dealing with. This is the level of their trauma. And the person that stubbed the toe is going through just as much pain and sorrow as the person that lost the leg. Because their level of frequency that they need to face inside themselves, they don't have to be hurt to the level of losing a limb to have to face that part of themselves. But this person was like, I'm not facing this. I don't care. I'm not facing it. And that had to come to the boom. So I do feel that experiencing those things in life are important, that we all have a different level and layer of that experience, as we all have different responsibilities, right? Different accountabilities in our world. If I had to do over, I would, with a big heart, relive it with joy. Because I see the purpose, I see the beauty. But looking at where the frequencies are now on the planet, those kinds of pains aren't necessary anymore for growth. There's enough people that have experienced it that can teach, that continue to learn. And now we can create systems and tools to assist people in learning without having to take themselves that far. But the question is, do you want to sit in the pain a little bit longer? Or are you ready to find you? Are you ready to feel that space that seems like a dream or seems like an impossibility? Or maybe you can touch it and you just can't step into it.
Such a beautiful question, and I think we all have to take some time and think about it and what that answer is to us. So I'd encourage every one of us to do that. Now, Heather, tell me, you've shared some resources, and there's so much, that you've gone through that people can resonate with, and they may want to reach out for help. How can they find you, and what can they reach out for?
Well, I am a personalist, so the first thing I would do is do a consult, and the consult would determine what your needs are, and go from there. What do I do? What do you need? I'm a personalist. I'm about meeting the person where they're at and assisting them in that growth. And it isn't about me doing it for you. It's about you doing it for yourself and having a space where you can feel supported and guided and understood, no matter what it is. I work with all types of things: families, couples, people, elders, children, babies. I've delivered babies. Medicine, being able to work with medicine, whether you're taking Western medicine and you're like, man, I'm taking Western medicine, but I really wanted to add some like holistic aspects. There's so much that's there in the world that can be supported. So having like supports, health aids and things like that are herbal supplements, sometimes it's just about understanding what is going to work for you. And if I don't know what it is, then we will find the person that does. And that's the thing. It's really about finding what resonates with you. If I'm not the one that resonates with you, but you get on a consult call with me and I can feel that it's, that, oh, you know what, this person's going to be the perfect fit, then I will direct you into that space. And if you feel and resonate with that, you can. The diversity of humanity is so important and key, and there's not a whole lot of us out there that work in the diversity. But when we find each other, it's something that we like to hold on to because of its rarity. So you just tell me what you need, and if I can't help you, I'll send you somewhere that someone can. If you want to take a look at my YouTube, it is gettailored.love. My website is if you want to take a look at my website, it's gettailored.love, gettaylored.love. If you're interested in the YouTube channel, just simply go to Get Tailored, and it's Form Fit Yourself to Your Soul. There's beautiful things on there. My friend Sarah Cosme, which you'll be seeing her come out on her Gaia show very soon. She is on a lot of different shows. She just did James Van Prague. We are on the YouTube, and this is exciting. This is the first place I'm announcing this. We haven't even done our advertisements yet. But we will be doing a live stream and in-person event because people are continuing to ask for more of us. So we will be here in Southern California on February 1st and 2nd. Stay tuned, sign up, send us messages on my website in the help desk if you're interested, if you need help, and we'll let you know when we're doing the event. Yes, thank you so much. This is many layers of life to learn, and I've learned a lot today. Thank you.
I have learned so much, and I think so many of us have. So thank you so much for, being open, being vulnerable, sharing your story and your lessons with us. I know that you hear this often, but it makes such an impact, and I think every person that watches this will have a lesson to learn and will find something they resonate with and they can take forward. So thank you so much for what you do, Heather.
Oh, thank you for what you do. And guys, I truly hope you feel this from my heart. I just truly love all of you. I really do. And I resonate so deeply with what's going on in your world to just know you're not alone. even when you feel you might be.
That's so beautiful. Let me just stop the recording.